Hello and welcome, all you beautiful people, to Breakfast All Day. I am Christy. That is Matt. That is Alonzo. We are ending on a very up note of beauty and glamour and love and 15 to 20-pound capes covered in bejewels and sequins and mucho, mucho amor. Mwah.
Mwah.
Alonzo, tell us about it.
Mucho Mucho Amor is the story of Walter Mercado, who may be unknown to a lot of U.S. audiences, but in Latin America, he is a huge, huge star. Like in the movie, he is compared to the Pope. I think of him as if Criswell dressed like Liberace. He has been doing horoscopes on Puerto Rican, starting in Puerto Rico, but on television throughout Spanish-speaking countries in North and South America since the late 60s. And, he's just this incredible figure of somebody who, whatever horoscope he was giving, whatever futures he was predicting, it was always about positivity. It was always about love. It was always about encouraging people to follow their dreams. He is beautifully flamboyant, like Christy said, the heavy capes, the jewels, the hair, the face, in a very traditionally macho Latin culture, but nonetheless managed to become a superstar, a super popular fixture of the culture. And we really see that toward the end of the film when Lin-Manuel Miranda gets to meet Walter Mercado and is so clearly starstruck, is just like shaking. He can't believe it.
He cries.
He cries. He cannot believe that he is meeting the great Walter Mercado. And it is this very affectionate portrait of Mercado's life and career. It culminates with a museum in Miami doing a retrospective of his work. And it's just this really beautiful portrait of a larger than life figure who managed to carve out a niche for himself in a world that was in a lot of ways not ready for him and not ready for all of the bounty that he brought to the table.
Now, how much did you know about Walter Mercado going into this film, Alonzo?
I knew I had a pretty good idea about him. But when I was growing up, the cable system in Atlanta didn't have the cable channel from Spain, like that I subscribe to now, the state, Spanish television, but we did get, Univision and other ones. So they would watch sometimes Spanish language TV. And so Sábado Gigante was the thing we would watch. Semi-ironically, but we watched it. So people like Walter Mercado would pop up on that show. And Dave and I for years would always say, that Mercado is Spanish for market, like supermercado is a supermarket. So whenever one of us would go shopping, well, what did you get at the Walter Mercado,
Only fabulous things.
Exactly.
Cosas muy ricos.
Sí.
I did not know. I mean, it rings a bell kind of, but he wasn't like a part of my consciousness. And it's fascinating to see the way in which he's absolutely revered worldwide, culminating with this exhibit in Miami and people just fawning over him and wanting to touch him and touch his capes. And he is a fascinating figure. And this is very much a love letter to him in ways that I wish it had. I tried a little more to dig a little bit deeper and ask some of the questions that were a little bit tougher. I mean, they skimmed the surface of his sexuality, right? He has this longtime assistant named Willie who has lived with him for decades,
right.
With whom I guess it is a platonic relationship. But we don't really ever learn, the true nature of Walter Mercado. He is forever this intangible and ethereal and fantastical creature.
I am very forgiving of gays of a certain age and from a certain culture to keep their cards close to their spangly, glamorous vest.
And I don't want them to out him. I don't, but I wish that there were more than just skimming the shimmery surface of Walter Mercado here.
I think the fact that Willie has been around for decades speaks a lot. At one point I turned to Dave and I jokingly said he's the Scott Thorson to Mercado's Liberace, but the difference is that Liberace dumped Scott Thorson and got sued by him, whereas Willie is clearly one of the family and very much part of the inner circle. So
Willie's very
even when Mercado has no more money anymore.
Yeah.
Right. Mercado, I mean, both Willie and Mercado, Willie will say, "Oh, I've never laid a finger on him." I mean, what are you going to do? Well, I don't believe you for a second, right? Like, you know, considering like they actually, I mean, I'm somewhat impressed they actually managed to get some of the shots of Mercado that they get, because he hasn't been on camera in so long, and you see him kind of puttering around, and they let him, you know, they get access to seeing like Willie put his makeup on and get him dressed, and
using
you know,
a walker and stuff, like, you know,
right. And Mercado himself says, like, you know, I mean, obviously this is a line that he's been doing literally for decades. He's like, I get orgasms from life. Like you know,
I have sex with the flowers and the sun.
Right. And the thing is, like, a guy, you know, you look back like, okay, he was born in what, the 20s or 30s in Puerto Rico and in the country. Like, of course that guy is like so deep in the closet, he's forgotten it's a closet. Right. And
1932 in Puerto Rico.
And his way that he gets out of that is, you know, he pivots from being on stage and in TV to being this person where he you know, it's yeah, and come back with the robe the next day. He's like, oh, I'll hit you with robes. I mean, you know, it's.
I love the hipstery guy who says, like, please, if you had a non-binary asexual Latinx astrologer on, he'd be the biggest thing on Instagram, you know.
Right, and you know, the hipsters, you know, you see little bits of how the hipster kids started to figure him out. And there's these memes about, you know, when your grandmother gets the Mercado haircut, and you know, what you do get a sense of from this movie is that how, you know, somebody like that is kind of always on, right? Like he is the image. He is the image. He's become at some point, he's become the image. That's the way he is all the time. And people love him, and you know, his message is positive, and he does pick all these different pieces from different religions, you know, and yes, he's doing charts, and we can look at like astrology, but at the end of the day, he's using that, you know, and I'm not trying to be like an apologist for a certain belief set or say that it's wrong, but you know, we should be so lucky that somebody who has that much influence is trying to be positive, right?
He's a motivational speaker disguised as an astrologer, I think.
Right.
I think that was my
right. And he's not like fleecing people for his money.
He's not, but he was part of the Psychic Friends Network for a while with Dionne Warwick and Miss Cleo.
Right.
And well, I mean,
but
one thing I would say.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I mean, this is something else that I wish the movie had even like slightly pressed him on, which is like, do you feel any kind of responsibility for people who might have made decisions with their life based on your recommendations, right? And again, they're all amorphous and they're all sunny and whatever, but like, I think probably beyond the entertainment value and the nostalgia value and just the charm of his screen presence, probably folks look to him for legitimate guidance. And like, does he feel any responsibility for the inherent bullshit nature of his gig? I mean, again, I want to know that, and they don't ask him.
Sure, that's a fair question, because at one point he even says, like, I don't tell people you're going to win the lottery, but then they cut to like one of those Psychic Friends ads where they talk about, and we'll give you lottery numbers, you know. So it's like, you know, there is an interesting
they were
thing.
Winning lottery numbers.
Exactly, they're just numbers. There's the agent who like did all this stuff for him and then screwed him over, and that's handled really well in that when we're introduced to the agent, it's completely benignly, like, oh no, I came along and, you know, I got him on this satellite thing and blah blah blah, and it's like, okay, cool. And then you find out, and then you also like stabbed him in the back and tried to steal his name, you know. And so that's at least they kind of take you through that in a way that they don't immediately show their hands there.
The directors are Christina Costantini and Kareem Tabsh, who
yes,
both, you know, grew up loving him, and this, so clearly that affection shines throughout.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, you're right. It doesn't rip the lid off Walter Mercado in any way that it might have. But I just think he's just this sort of singular figure, and it is this nice, this lovely Valentine to him, because there never has and there never will be anybody like him in popular culture.
No, I would say the closest we would have had would have been some, you know, Liberace, somewhat similar. There's a bit of Richard Simmons that is somewhat similar, but that's a whole other.
Do you guys know who Criswell is?
Yeah.
In the 50s and 60s, he was the Criswell Predicts guy. He's in Plan 9 from Outer Space. He's at the beginning and the ending. But like his whole shtick was to go on TV and make these wildly outrageous predictions, none of which ever came true.
Yeah, this is
Bill Murray plays him in Ed Wood.
Right. Yeah, I mean, this is a sweet movie, and it's a feel-good story. And yes, there's a little sadness to it because how kind of like, oh, how the mighty have fallen. But it's ultimately, you can't help but love this guy, right? Like, and I will say I was describing this story because as the movie goes, 30 minutes into it, you're like, all right, I'm like, okay, there's another hour. When's the descent into drugs and alcohol? Right. This is going too well.
Where's the escándalo?
Right. But I'm describing to my wife, who works at a business management company, that they handle a lot of people in the entertainment business. And I said, okay, so this guy signs over, he gets bad legal advice, signs over his name, his likeness, all his old work, and all his future work forever in perpetuity
throughout the universe.
And she's like, what? I'm like, yeah. Right? Like for us that, that's the equivalent for a filmmaker. Like, yeah, I shot this whole movie, but the lens cap was on.
Yeah. That's playing Russian roulette with 6 bullets.
Right.
No, you feel bad for me that he's so sunny and so open-hearted and so trusting that he would do something like that ended up being so detrimental to him. And there's some sadness, at the end, because these are his last interviews, and he hadn't been seen for a long time, and he trusted these filmmakers to tell his story at a point in his life where he was vulnerable. And so, I recommend it. I do. It's good. It's entertaining.
But one of the fun things about this is it's such a celebration of a guy who knows who he is and knows what the audience wants, and by God, he's going to give it to him. Right? Like, no matter what it takes, he's going to give it. And even when it's just people sitting around like, give me a Mucho Amor. Okay.
Yeah.
He
signs every autograph, takes every selfie.
Yes. I always admire people who like carve out their own place. Like, I always say, like, Sandra Bernhard or Kumail Nanjiani, like the show business did not have a slot for them. They had to go in and make a slot for themselves because there was nobody was fishing for that. Nobody was looking for Walter Mercado, but Walter Mercado became this phenomenon just by sheer dint of being so unique and so engaging and just so like just such a positive force for a lot of people's lives. And so I have to admire that.
So what is your number? I'm saying 8.5.
I said 9.
I don't remember what I said.
You said 9 also.
9. Yeah.
Okay.
I wish that I could rock a cape like that.
You can.
No. To be clear, we talked about this earlier. I know that I could rock a cape, but I'm not sure anyone can rock a cape like Walter Mercado.
Yeah.
Walter was singular. That's true. Lin-Manuel Miranda puts on the spangly Puerto Rican flag cape at one point,
yes.
but nobody can really wear it though. Our number is an 8.8, so that's available on Netflix. Yeah, 9 plus 9 plus 8.5.
Oh, really? Okay, you're right. Sorry. Yes.
1 plus 1 plus
You're
2
right.
I did it on my calculator, Alonzo.
I shan't doubt you. Forgive me. I was misremembering what some of the numbers were. That's on me.
All right, 8.8. And go check it out on Netflix. It will put a smile on your face in these crazy times.
Indeed. You know what? Like, watch Welcome to Chechnya, and then for a pick-me-up, Mucho Mucho Amor. That'll do you good. All right. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Please like this video. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us at BeFastAllDay on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/BeFastAllDay. So much fun stuff there that's exclusive content for our subscribers. We hope you'll check it out. And, we're going to get through this thing, y'all. So wash your hands, wear a mask, take care of yourselves and each other. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Goodbye.